continuing on with range combat, we're going to discuss very quickly extended range and reduced range. Now, before we get into those two specifically, there is something else you need to keep in mind, and that's called limited range. Units that have their range underlined on their counter, like this example that I have set down here, this Flame Panzer, you can see that its range is underlined. When they have their range underlined, that means the rules for extended range and reduced range that I'm getting ready to go over are exempt. They do not apply to these units. So make sure you keep that in mind when we go over these following sets of rules. Now, depending on the range of an enemy opponent, you can get a bonus or penalty when firing at them. So let's take a look at extended range first. Let's say our Tiger here wanted to fire at one of these Su-152s. So if we had it way out in the distance, and let's just take and pretend for our sake that this is 8 hexes or farther away from the Tiger up to double its printed range. We can see its printed range for AP is 7, which means it can have extended range up until 14 hexes. So 8 to 14 hexes will count as extended range for this Tiger, and it could fire at the Su-152 at extended range, but it would have a penalty when doing so, and you would add a +1 to its to hit number, which would mean for this Tiger example, it would no longer need 4s to hit, but it would need a 5 instead. Now, if in the situation of an extended range, you have a unit that would already have a to hit number of 6, and it would need to add +1 to it for extended range, it can't do that. So instead, you would reduce the firepower by 1 instead. If a unit has a unmodified firepower of 1 and its to hit number is 6, that means it's just not going to be capable of extended range fire. Now, the reduce is applicable in the fact that you can get a bonus for firing at units that are close. So let's take our example of the Tiger looking at the infantry. We've moved them up a little bit closer, and we can see its HE range is 5. Now, when you're taking and looking for reduced range, it's going to be the half of the printed range rounded down. So with a printed range of 5, that means you take it in half, get 2.5, round it down 2 hexes away, will give you a reduced range bonus when firing. So when firing with the Tiger, and it has a 5-3-5 for its stat line for HE, instead of needing to roll 5s to hit, since it's at reduced range, it would only need a 4 to hit instead. So when it comes to range, it's really easy to understand. As long as you don't have an underlined range, if you can fire up to twice your printed range, this is considered extended range, and you're going to add a +1 to your hit number. And if you are at half range, rounded down, you're going to subtract 1 from your to hit number.